Apollo Global Management owns everything from fast food chains to luxury hotels, but buried deep within their investment portfolio is something far more controversial: America's largest private army. In 2025, this Wall Street giant controls Constellis Holdings, the company that emerged from Blackwater's ashes, and the numbers are staggering. We're talking about a private military empire with over 14,000 employees that deploys personnel to more countries than most intelligence agencies, and Constellis maintains minimal public disclosures about its global deployments, despite operating across dozens of nations. But what most people don't understand is how dramatically this organization has changed since its Blackwater days. The Phoenix rises, Constellis in 2025. Today's corporate structure represents a complete reinvention of how private military contractors operate in America. While Blackwater once dominated headlines with scandal after scandal, most notably the 2007 Nisour Square massacre that killed 17 Iraqi civilians, Constellis Holdings now operates as a quiet corporate giant that most Americans have never heard of. The company sits comfortably within Apollo Global Management's massive investment portfolio, sharing space with household names like Yahoo, Shutterfly, and the University of Phoenix. This placement represents something unprecedented in American corporate history: a private army nestled alongside consumer brands that families interact with regularly. Apollo's 2025 portfolio spans $671 billion in assets under management, and Constellis represents just one piece of this financial empire. The private equity firm treats the military contractor with the same analytical approach they apply to retail chains or restaurant franchises. Apollo's 2024 recapitalization deal restructured Constellis into two distinct divisions, optimizing operational efficiency in the same way they might reorganize a struggling retail chain. Board meetings evaluate personnel deployment costs alongside franchise expansion plans. The corporate integration runs so deep that Apollo's pension fund investors unknowingly profit from private military operations through their retirement accounts. This sanitized corporate structure masks the reality of what Constellis actually does. The company maintains training facilities across multiple states, operates logistics networks that span continents, and employs thousands of personnel with military and intelligence backgrounds. Yet public awareness of these operations remains virtually non-existent. Local news outlets rarely cover Constellis facilities in their communities. Congressional hearings about defense spending rarely mention the company by name. The corporate anonymity that Blackwater never achieved has become Constellis's greatest strategic advantage. The scale of modern private military operations extends far beyond what most defense analysts recognize. Constellis coordinates simultaneous operations across 6 continents, manages supply chains that rival major corporations, and maintains communication networks that connect remote outposts to corporate headquarters in Virginia. The company operates aircraft fleets, armored vehicle pools, and specialized equipment inventories that would be impressive for a small nation's military. These assets support missions ranging from diplomatic security to infrastructure protection, yet the general public remains largely unaware of their existence. Corporate secrecy has become an art form at Constellis. The company publishes minimal public information about its operations, maintains strict media policies, and operates through a network of subsidiary companies that obscure the true scope of its activities. This approach represents a dramatic shift from Blackwater's high-profile era, when Eric Prince regularly appeared on television and the company's name appeared in major news stories. Today's Constellis leadership avoids public attention entirely, delegating media interactions to corporate communications specialists who provide carefully crafted responses that reveal nothing meaningful about operations. The financial mechanisms that support this corporate structure create a disturbing disconnect between investors and consequences. Pension funds from teachers, firefighters, and police officers generate returns through Apollo's investment in Constellis, yet these public servants have no knowledge that their retirement savings fund private military operations. Mutual funds marketed to middle-class investors include Apollo Holdings, creating a situation where suburban families indirectly profit from international security contracts. This financial architecture ensures that private military operations maintain broad-based support through economic incentives, even as public opinion surveys show skepticism about PMC activities. Wall Street's embrace of private military contractors represents a fundamental shift in how America approaches national security. Traditional defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon face extensive congressional oversight, detailed financial reporting requirements, and constant media scrutiny. Constellis operates under far less stringent oversight while generating comparable revenues. The company benefits from the same tax advantages available to other corporations, receives similar investment bank coverage, and enjoys the same legal protections that shield mainstream businesses from operational liability. The post-Afghanistan era has created unprecedented opportunities for private military expansion. Government agencies that previously relied on uniformed personnel now routinely contract with PMCs for specialized services. The State Department's Diplomatic Security Service coordinates with Constellis on embassy protection contracts. The Defense Department partners with the company on training programs that were once conducted entirely by military personnel. Intelligence agencies utilize PMC services for operations that require plausible deniability or rapid deployment capabilities. Corporate efficiency metrics reveal how deeply PMCs have integrated into government operations. Constellis can deploy personnel to international locations within 72 hours, compared to weeks or months required for traditional military deployment. The company maintains pre-positioned equipment in strategic locations worldwide, eliminating the logistical challenges that constrain government forces. Specialized skill sets that might require months to develop within military units are immediately available through PMC recruitment from veteran communities. The competitive landscape among private military contractors has evolved into a sophisticated marketplace where companies compete on technological capabilities, response times, and cost efficiency. Constellis faces competition from established players like DynCorp and newer entrants that specialize in cyber warfare or drone operations. This competition drives innovation in ways that traditional military procurement processes cannot match. Companies invest heavily in research and development, pursue aggressive recruitment strategies, and develop proprietary technologies that provide competitive advantages. International expansion has become a critical growth strategy for modern PMCs. Constellis maintains offices in dozens of countries, employs local personnel who understand regional dynamics, and adapts its services to meet specific client requirements. The company works with foreign governments, international organizations, and multinational corporations that require security services beyond what traditional military or police forces can provide. These international relationships create revenue streams that are largely invisible to American oversight mechanisms. The regulatory environment surrounding PMCs has evolved in ways that favor corporate growth over public accountability. Licensing requirements vary significantly between jurisdictions, creating opportunities for companies to operate in regions with minimal oversight. International legal frameworks struggle to address the complex jurisdictional issues that arise when private military contractors operate across borders. Corporate legal teams have become expert at navigating these regulatory gaps, ensuring that PMC operations remain legally protected while maintaining operational flexibility. But the true measure of this transformation isn't found in corporate structures or regulatory frameworks. It's written in numbers that would shock most Americans who assume private military contractors represent a small niche within the defense industry. The numbers game, 2025 financial empire. Constellis generated $2.8 billion in revenue during 2025, a figure that places the company among America's largest defense contractors while maintaining profit margins that would make Fortune 500 executives envious. This financial transformation from Blackwater's peak revenue of $1.2 billion during the Iraq War demonstrates how private military contractors have evolved from niche service providers into major corporate entities that rival established defense giants. The gap between public perception and actual financial performance represents one of the most significant information asymmetries in American business. Most Americans assume that private military contractors operate as relatively small organizations that supplement government forces during specific conflicts. This assumption reflects outdated thinking from the early 2000s when PMCs were primarily associated with Iraq and Afghanistan deployments. The reality of modern private military operations involves financial scales that most people would find difficult to comprehend. Constellis has transformed into a corporate entity whose annual revenue exceeds that of many household name companies that Americans encounter daily. Traditional defense contractors face a complex web of regulatory requirements, congressional oversight, and public scrutiny that constrains their profit margins and operational flexibility. Companies like General Dynamics and Northrop Grumman must navigate extensive procurement processes, detailed financial reporting requirements, and constant political oversight. These constraints limit their ability to achieve the profit margins that characterize other industries. Constellis operates under a fundamentally different business model that allows for higher profitability while maintaining lower public visibility. The company's revenue per employee ratios exceed those of most technology companies, pharmaceutical firms, and financial services organizations. The contrast becomes even more striking when examining profit margins across the defense industry. Traditional military suppliers typically operate on margins between 8 and 12%, reflecting the competitive nature of government procurement and the regulatory constraints that govern their operations. Constellis achieves profit margins that consistently exceed 20%, a performance that would be remarkable in any industry, but becomes extraordinary when considering the operational risks and regulatory challenges associated with private military services. These margins reflect the premium rates that clients pay for specialized capabilities, rapid deployment, and operational flexibility that government forces cannot match. Defense spending constraints across Western nations have created a paradoxical situation where military budgets remain flat or decline, while demand for specialized security services continues to grow. The United States government's preference for outsourcing military and security services drives growth for the private military services market. This trend reflects the need to reduce state military expenditures and the desire for more flexible and scalable security solutions. PMCs offer tailored services that can be quickly deployed and adapted to meet specific client requirements, which proves particularly valuable in unpredictable or rapidly changing environments. Government agencies can access specialized capabilities without the long-term personnel costs and infrastructure investments required for traditional military units. Contract values across Constellis operations span an impressive geographic range that reflects the global nature of modern security challenges. The company maintains active contracts across North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, with individual contract values ranging from several $millions for specialized training programs to hundreds of millions for comprehensive security operations. European Union contracts alone account for over $400 million in annual revenue, while African operations generate another $890 million through partnerships with governments and international organizations. Asian markets contribute approximately $320 million annually, primarily through corporate security services and infrastructure protection contracts. The deployment of these massive financial resources reveals the scope of modern private military operations. Personnel costs represent the largest expense category, with Constellis spending over $1.1 billion annually on salaries, benefits, and contractor payments. Equipment and technology investments account for another $340 million, reflecting the company's commitment to maintaining technological advantages over competitors. Logistics and transportation expenses reach $180 million annually, supporting global operations that require coordination across multiple time zones and conflict environments. Administrative and overhead costs add another $220 million, covering everything from corporate headquarters operations to legal and compliance expenses. Corporate efficiency metrics demonstrate why clients choose private military contractors over traditional alternatives. Constellis can deploy specialized teams to international locations within 72 hours, compared to the weeks or months required for government military deployments. The company maintains pre-positioned equipment caches in 23 countries, eliminating the logistical delays that constrain traditional military operations. Training programs can be customized and implemented within days rather than the months required for government procurement processes. These operational advantages allow Constellis to charge premium rates that reflect the value clients place on speed, flexibility, and specialized capabilities. Client diversity reveals the broad appeal of private military services across different sectors and geographic regions. Government contracts account for approximately 60% of Constellis revenue, with the remainder split between corporate clients and international organizations. Fortune 500 companies pay premium rates for executive protection services, facility security, and risk assessment capabilities. International mining companies, energy firms, and infrastructure developers require specialized security services in regions where traditional law enforcement cannot provide adequate protection. These commercial clients often pay higher rates than government contracts, reflecting the immediate financial stakes involved in protecting corporate assets and personnel. Apollo Global Management's board meetings illustrate how completely private military operations have integrated into mainstream corporate finance. Directors evaluate Constellis personnel deployment costs alongside Yahoo's quarterly earnings and Shutterfly's profit margins. The same analytical frameworks that assess retail performance now scrutinize military contractor efficiency. Apollo manages approximately $511 million invested directly in Constellis, treating the private military contractor with the same portfolio optimization strategies applied to consumer brands. These extraordinary financial returns have attracted continued investment from major institutions while generating operational capabilities that rival those of national militaries. But the true scope of Constellis operations extends far beyond what these impressive revenue figures suggest, reaching into regions and conflicts that most Americans would never expect to find private military contractors operating. Global footprint, the invisible army. Constellis maintains active operations in over 50 countries as of 2025, with personnel deployed across regions that rarely appear in mainstream media coverage of American military activities. Corporate facilities exist in nations where the United States government maintains no official military presence, creating a shadow network of American military capability that operates entirely outside public awareness or congressional oversight. Most Americans could not name 5 countries where United States military forces maintain permanent bases, yet this private army operates in locations that would surprise defense analysts who track traditional military deployments. The operational security surrounding PMC deployments has reached levels that would impress intelligence agencies. Constellis personnel move between countries using commercial aviation, private transportation networks, and logistics systems that leave minimal paper trails or public records. Local media outlets in host countries rarely report on PMC arrivals or departures, either because they lack awareness of these activities or because corporate security measures prevent meaningful access to information. Government officials in many nations actively cooperate with PMC operational security requirements, understanding that discretion ensures continued access to specialized capabilities that their own security forces cannot provide. African operations represent the largest concentration of Constellis personnel outside traditional conflict zones, with substantial deployments across nations that most Americans could not locate on a map. The company maintains training facilities in West Africa, logistics bases in East Africa, and operational centers in Central Africa that support missions ranging from anti-piracy operations to mineral extraction security. These African deployments operate with virtually no American media coverage, allowing Constellis to maintain extensive operations without the political scrutiny that would accompany traditional military deployments to the same regions. Middle Eastern operations continue despite the withdrawal of American forces from Iraq and Afghanistan, with Constellis maintaining substantial personnel levels across Gulf states, Jordan, Israel, and other regional partners. These deployments support embassy security contracts, corporate protection services, and specialized training programs that governments prefer to conduct through private contractors rather than official military partnerships. The company operates from bases that were originally constructed for American military forces but now serve as permanent PMC facilities with long-term lease agreements and infrastructure investments. European operations span NATO member nations and neutral countries, reflecting the continent's growing reliance on private security services for missions that governments cannot publicly acknowledge. Constellis maintains facilities in the United Kingdom, Germany, Poland, and several other nations where the company provides services ranging from cybersecurity training to counterterrorism support. These European operations benefit from a continent's regulatory environment, which allows PMCs to operate with fewer restrictions than those imposed by American oversight mechanisms. Asian deployments have expanded significantly as regional tensions increase and governments seek alternatives to traditional military partnerships. Constellis operates across Southeast Asia, maintaining facilities in nations that serve as staging areas for operations throughout the region. The company provides maritime security services in waters where piracy and territorial disputes create ongoing threats to commercial shipping. Corporate clients across Asia pay premium rates for executive protection services, facility security, and risk assessment capabilities that local security forces cannot match. Personnel numbers across these global operations rival the active military strength of many developed nations. Constellis maintains over 14,000 deployed personnel worldwide, a figure that exceeds the total active military personnel of countries like Denmark, Norway, or New Zealand. These personnel include former American military members, international contractors, and locally recruited specialists who provide cultural knowledge and language capabilities. The company's human resources operations coordinate recruitment, training, and deployment across multiple continents simultaneously, managing personnel flows that would challenge many government agencies. Coordination across multiple theaters requires sophisticated communication systems and command structures that operate independently of government military networks. Constellis maintains its own satellite communication capabilities and encrypted data networks that coordinate operations across different time zones and security environments. The company's operational headquarters in Virginia serves as a global coordination center that monitors personnel, equipment, and mission status across dozens of countries simultaneously. This coordination capability allows Constellis to shift resources between regions based on changing client requirements or security threats. Logistics complexity increases exponentially when managing operations across such diverse geographic and political environments. Constellis maintains supply chains that deliver equipment, ammunition, medical supplies, and other operational necessities to personnel deployed worldwide. The company operates its own transportation networks, including aircraft fleets and shipping arrangements that move personnel and equipment between theaters without relying on commercial or government transportation systems. These logistics networks require relationships with suppliers, transportation companies, and customs officials across dozens of countries. Corporate headquarters coordination involves managing legal compliance requirements across multiple jurisdictions, each with different regulatory frameworks governing private military operations. Constellis maintains legal teams that specialize in international law, local regulations, and contractual requirements that vary significantly between countries. The company must navigate export control regulations, weapons licensing requirements, and operational restrictions that change based on local political conditions and bilateral agreements between the United States and host nations. Geopolitical implications of such widespread private military presence extend far beyond the immediate operational objectives that drive individual contracts. Constellis operations influence regional power balances, affect relationships between host nations and their neighbors, and create dependencies on American private military capabilities that can shape long-term strategic relationships. Host governments often prefer working with PMCs because these relationships avoid the political complications associated with official military partnerships while providing access to advanced capabilities and training. This extensive global network represents just one player in what has become an increasingly crowded and competitive marketplace. The success of Constellis operations has attracted numerous competitors, each seeking to capture their share of the lucrative contract. The competition wars, PMC market dynamics. Market dynamics have transformed private military contracting into a corporate battlefield where billion-dollar companies compete for contracts with the intensity of tech giants fighting for market share. This evolution represents a dramatic shift from the early 2000s when Blackwater dominated headlines as the primary PMC operating in Iraq and Afghanistan. Today's competitive landscape involves dozens of major players, each with specialized capabilities, proprietary technologies, and aggressive business development strategies designed to capture lucrative government and corporate contracts that can determine whether companies thrive or disappear entirely. Government contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars change hands regularly as agencies evaluate competing proposals from PMCs that promise superior capabilities, lower costs, or specialized expertise that distinguishes them from competitors. The Department of Defense alone awards over $15 billion annually in contracts for private military services, creating a market environment where companies invest millions in proposal development, lobbying efforts, and competitive intelligence gathering to position themselves for major contract wins. A single large contract can transform a mid-tier PMC into a major industry player, while losing a renewal competition can force companies to lay off thousands of employees and abandon entire operational theaters. Constellis faces serious competitive threats from established American companies and emerging international rivals that challenge its market position through different strategic approaches. DynCorp International leverages decades of aviation and logistics expertise to compete for training and support contracts, particularly in regions where air mobility and specialized transportation capabilities provide competitive advantages. Aegis Defense Services focuses on risk management and consulting services that appeal to corporate clients seeking comprehensive security solutions rather than traditional military contracting. G4S operates as a global security giant whose scale and international presence allow the company to offer integrated services across multiple countries simultaneously. Contract competition creates winner-take-all scenarios where small differences in pricing, capabilities, or political relationships determine outcomes worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Constellis lost a major State Department contract renewal in 2024 when a competitor underbid by less than 2% while promising identical service levels, resulting in the layoff of over 1,200 personnel and the closure of 3 regional offices. Conversely, the company won a $340 million Defense Department training contract by demonstrating proprietary simulation technologies that competitors could not match, leading to immediate hiring of 800 new employees and expansion into 2 additional countries.